We head now from our nation's capital to the ancient and eternal capital of Israel, Jerusalem. That's where I sat down with leading Israeli Knesset member Tzachi Hanegbi. He's a minister in the office of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and he's in charge of national security and foreign affairs. Now, that's a crucial responsibility, and we talked about it recently in his home near Jerusalem. Take a look. Minister Hanegbi, thanks so much for having us in your home today.
Thank you.
We have an interesting dynamic shaping up right now where we have the Sunni Arab states and the Gulf states. In many ways, their interests are aligning with Israel, not only about ISIS, but over the Iran threat. Can you talk, Minister, about how the growing Iranian threat in the region is bringing some unlikely allies closer together?
Sure. The picture is much more positive now. For many, many years, we only had enemies. We were surrounded by very hostile, powerful Arab countries that wanted to see the elimination of the state of Israel. Then we had two peace accords with Egypt and Jordan, so we felt that things are changing. Now, we still have enemies, and very vicious enemies, but many more Arab Sunni countries, even though they do not have diplomatic relations with ours, understand that Israel is not only a partner, not an enemy anymore, but an asset, because we can help them fight Iran, and Iran is the biggest threat to their very existence.
Egypt, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, they're concerned about that growing Iranian superpower, Minister, in the region. Could you talk about that, how Iran is marching across the region, whether it's Yemen, Damascus, Beirut, Baghdad? Iranian influence seems to be growing in the region at Israel's doorstep right now.
Iran is going forward to ruin every chance of stability and peace in the Middle East. They're doing it in the various capitals that you've just mentioned, and also around us in Gaza with the Hamas and the Islamic Jihad, with the Hezbollah in our northern border with Lebanon and Syria. And they want to surround us in order to put down the only friend of the United States, or a strong friend of the United States in the region.
You know, Minister, it seems that Iran nuclear deal kind of just kicked the ball down the road when it comes to the nuclear program. Not only that, it does not address Iran's growing ballistic missile program. Could you tell us how those Iranian ballistic missiles are a threat, not just for Israel, but for the United States?
We tried to convince the previous administration to include, with the negotiation about the nuclear program, to include a demand to put an end to this program that has so many United Nations Security Council resolutions against. Unfortunately, we failed, and the program goes on, and the tests are going on, and also not only in Iran, also in North Korea, when Iranian scientists are practically present, participating, and partners of North Korea in their nuclear efforts. So I hope that the new administration, as he mentioned and he has clarified, is not going to close his eyes.
Yeah, I believe when Iran refers to America as the great Satan, they mean it. Exactly. One of the other things the Iran nuclear deal does not address, Minister, is Iran's continued sponsorship and support for terrorism. You mentioned Hezbollah earlier. You've done so much work in the Knesset on foreign affairs, defense, the terrorist threat for years. Could you talk about the nature of that Hezbollah threat? Over 100,000 rockets, missiles on Israel's northern border. How grave a threat is this?
Well, first of all, it's not an existential threat. They don't have the power to go into Israel, conquer Israel, defeat Israel. But it's an Iranian proxy. There are Iranians' long hand in the Middle East because Iran doesn't want to clash with us, confront us. What they did is to establish a satellite, a proxy, that is now very powerful. They have 130,000 missiles that are targeting every place in Israel, every strategic place, every city, every army base, every airport, every infrastructure that is essential for our existence. So they can, in time, when the Tehran regime will make a decision, like they did in the past, they can provoke us, they can escalate, cause us to be dragged into a war in Lebanon instead of putting our effort to Iran. And this is the strategic power that Iran built in the neighborhood.
one of the things that is very troubling, I think, for Americans is that a lot of millions and millions of dollars in U.S. aid goes to the Palestinian Authority, yet the PA pays the salaries of terrorists and the families of terrorists who murder Israelis and, by the way, have American blood on their hands as well. Could you talk about that, Minister, how the Palestinian Authority of Mahmoud Abbas continues to pay the salaries of terrorists?
When Yasser Arafat, the former leader of the Palestinians, passed away, Abu Mazen came, and everybody was more optimistic because he was always against violence, he was always denouncing terrorism. But when he became the president of the Palestinian Authority, he adopted a policy that even Arafat was not so powerful in promoting. And this is bribing the families of the terrorists and giving them money for each kill. It's not according to some kind of humanitarian reasons. If they kill more, they get more. If they kill 10, they get 10 times more than somebody who killed only one Jew. So it's a sign for us that this guy doesn't really mean to have coexistence with Israel and to live with Israel in peace. And this is why many, many Israelis, even though they would like to have peace in our neighborhood, are very skeptical when this guy is the leader of the Palestinian people.
Yeah, it seems like he says one thing to a Palestinian audience and another friendlier thing to a Western audience. Minister, I wanted to ask you about your family history. Your mom, your mother, your father were very involved in the struggle for independence and reestablishing Israel as a nation state. Can you talk about how your family influenced your entry into politics and why you do what you do?
I was lucky. I was brought up in a house, in a home of two heroes, both my mother, and may she live forever, and my father who passed away. They were both fighters for the underground that fought against the British occupation. They were both in jail. They escaped from jail with heroic escapes. They came back to the ranks of the underground, and they, with others of course, allowed us to have sovereignty, to have independence in 1948. My mother was a member of the parliament, and she was in government, and she's 91 years old and still alive and kicking. Yeah. And she is inspiration for me because she really tells me, look, you got the country and everybody is happy with the country, but don't take it for granted. We had to fight very, very passionately to have our independence after 2,000 years of exile.
Last question. How can Christians in the United States and around the world, we have a very large Christian audience watching the show, how can they help support Israel and help in the fight for Israel and for the Jewish people?
Well, thank God they do support us for so many years. I don't know if we will be able to have the strength that we are having and the intimate relationship with our best ally, with the United States, without the staunch support of the Christian community. I happen to be in the States a lot. My wife came from Florida. She was born in Florida, so I'm half American in a way, and my kids are Americans. So whenever I'm there, in many states, I do feel the love, the passion, I would say the intimacy of our relations with the Christian community, and this is our biggest asset.
Great to hear, Minister. Thank you so much.
Thank
really
you.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having us in your home today. Appreciate it.
Thanks again to Minister Tzachi Hanegbi for his hospitality and for his great insights on the threats gathering against Israel and the West. Well, up next, we're staying in Jerusalem where our good friend, security expert Avi Melamed is back to tell us about some important developments to Israel's south. This is very timely information, folks. You don't want to miss it. Stick around.